I got off task. No, I wasn't. Okay, so we left off talking about Hydra. They reproduce asexually by budding. But today, gentlemen, yeah, I'm going to sit over here with you. I think you guys need intense adult supervision. Yep. So the Lophotrochozoa, everybody say that together. Lophotrochozoa. Like, who makes these up, right? Whoa. Everything okay over there? What happened? Okay. All right. So these are bilaterally symmetrical. Let's clean that table off, and we'll try it again in a little bit. The embryos have 3 germ layers. Gosh, that's starting to sound more complex, right? The protostome is the pattern of development, not a deuterostome. So the protostome is where the mouth is the mouth and the anus is the anus, right? Not the deuterostome, where it's inverted. The adults have the organ level of organization, so they're actually going to have organs. Some have a true colon, but not all. And they're divided into 2 groups, the lophophorans and the trochozoans. Ugh. Aren't these words fun? No? I know. Trust me, I know. It's like, really? Why? I remember taking a test over this in biology. It was 202, and I was like, or 212, and I was like, who's making this up? I will tell you guys, once you decide your field of study in biology, you're only focused on like 1 or 2 chapters, right? And then it gets more intense within those chapters. So if all of biology you don't fall in love with, I understand. Trust me, I understand. So yeah, right. I get it. So just take all of it with a grain of salt, and I understand that someday you will specialize in one of these fields, probably, but perhaps not the lophophorans, right? Of the main group, Lophotrochozoans, right? We sound like we're talking in Klingon here, don't we? All right. So the bryozoans, the brachiopods, and the phoranids is what we're talking. We'll look at each of those, and then of course the trochoholozoans are the flatworms, rotifers, mollusks, and annelids. Now the annelids are kind of interesting. Mollusks are 2 snails, right? Make sure your eye ditties are not in your head. I did not. Yeah, I know. It's like history with their Mayans and their Zincas and their... I know it's Incas. I just call them Zincas. Zincons and Mayans, right? No? Sorry. Okay. I told my daughter about human sacrifice and all what the Incas and Mayans, all the crazy stuff they did, and my daughter's like, my teacher did not tell me about that. That will not be on the test. Dad, you need to be quiet. That's what she told me. She's like, that was not in our book. She goes, I don't care if it happened. It's not going to be on the test tomorrow. She's like, you're confusing me, Dad. Yeah. We talked about the Vikings a little bit, too. And after the test, because we couldn't do it before because she was not having it. But looking at the Lophotrochozoans, the flatworms in the phylum Platyhelminthes, that's always fun, right? They have flat bodies, hence the name flatworms. There's no specialized circulatory or respiratory structures. Now, I could have opted to order a bunch of flatworms. They gross me out way more than like a live earthworm, so I don't know why. They've always bugged me, but they do. I had to dissect like 10 different worms, and that one always, it looks goofy. I'll show you a picture of one in a minute. There's no specialized circulatory or respiratory structure. The sac body planned with 1 opening. So there's just 1 opening here. And there's no body cavity. Where's your notes, Ryan Milks? Oh, are you filling them out? Get a scribing device, please. You made YouTube today. If your name's on YouTube, it's a bad deal. I have record of me yelling at you. I can play this for your mother.
There's also record of all of those cameras and weird things you do.
It's okay.
I'm also on there. Jokes earlier this year.
Well, that's yeah.
Mr. Mason, I'm also on there earlier this year from Jokes.
Oh, okay, good deal. So the planarians, anybody ever seen a planaria? No? I'll show you a video of one reproducing. It's kind of cool. But they live in freshwater habitats. We do have them in Michigan. They're really small in Michigan. You go to Africa, they get a lot bigger. The head is bluntly arrowed shaped, so they do look like this little arrow. They look something, but not exactly. You guys know how good of an artist I am, right? They look kind of like this, like a leech with an arrow head. And then they'll look something like that. Cool thing about planaria is you can like cut them in half. And guess what they do? They grow into two. They're freaky little things, right? What page are you on right now? That's a good spot to be. If you look on page 531 in your text, there's a good picture of planaria regeneration. In fact, a lot of stem cell research started from looking at planaria. The auricles function as sense organs, and there's two light-sensitive eye spots. We don't call them eyes because they do sense light, but they aren't really doing it in a visionary sense. Like they don't have that optic nerve thing and the processing to do that. So there's three kinds of muscle layers. Earthworms can actually sense light too. That might be a fun animal behavior one. We're going to do animal behavior with butterworms or waxworms, but you guys will make environments for them and try to see if you can change their behavior. But then we could do that with earthworms too in different filters of light. That's kind of fun. You get like a red tint or a blue tint, UV. Then give them cancer. Yeah. Well, after what we did to them yesterday, cancer is pretty minimal, right? So there's three kinds of muscle layers: the outer circular layer, the inner longitudinal layer, and the diagonal layer. And what I mean by layers is basically they're tissue or they're germ layers, essentially. They're different types of tissue layers. Their excretory organ function in osmotic regulation and water excretion, so they control their water both in and out based on the tonicity of wherever they exist at. You guys remember tonicity, hypertonicity, hypotonicity, isotonicity? Whatever I say? Oh no, you guys don't remember that one? No? High solute outside of a cell is, everybody say hypertonic. Hypertonic. Low solute outside of the cell is hypotonic. Say hypotonic. If it's balanced, it's isotonic, right? Okay. Our cells like to be in an isotonic environment. Plants like a hypotonic environment. But these cells use osmosis, the movement of water across a membrane, to balance that tonicity. So they can reproduce asexually or sexually. So they can combine their gametes with another organism, or they can self-fertilize, and they can do something extra. They can actually cut themselves in two and become two where they were as one. Not through binary fission, literally physically being torn in two. So if something takes a bite out of them, no big deal. If they take a big enough bite, they might just make two individuals. They are hermaphroditic, just like our earthworm friends. They practice cross-fertilization, though. To give you an idea, earthworms, they will only encounter another earthworm in our lifespan that would be about 20 years. So imagine if you were only going to meet a girl, if you're a boy, every 20 years. I'm sorry, another person. What are the chances of that person being a boy or a girl? Everybody say 50-50, right? So you better have both parts when you get there, right? Because it might be another 20 years, and then your odds of that being the opposite sex are like 50-50. So when you meet up, you better have both sperm and egg. So they have undergone what's called cephalization. Yeah, I'd be like, oh, shoot, darn, that's not working, right? Oh, we both have satellum. Oh, no, and there's no, yeah. No earthworm jokes. Yes. So they have undergone cephalization. What is cephalization? Let's see if you guys remember what cephalization is in your own words to get you engaged a little bit. I know it's very easy to get disengaged sometimes when we're speaking Latin words over and over again. What does cephalization mean? What are we referencing? When we say it's cephalized, it means what? It's okay to be wrong as long as you participate. 6 responses does not cut it, though. Two, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 21, 21. Folks, I did this with my first hour. I had to crack down a little bit. Engage now. Put your answer in. Don't make me be mean, Mr. Mason. I don't like to do that. Cool, do it. Oh. Well. Has it started printing yet? Is it actually laying the filament on yet? Just cancel it and redo it. Oh, well, okay, well then don't do it. Yeah, I probably would. Well, I'm obviously going to be leaving it overnight running, so it's not a big deal. So I'm waiting. 3 more. I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 21. 2 more. I will have 100% participation. You guys are going to... All right, there we go. If that last one was you, get on task. I'm not going to look you up, but... So head being the key. Yeah, that's okay if you looked it up. I'm okay with that. Use the resources in front of you. Looking for the word head, right? Having a head, cephalopod. If you're cephalic, right, that means you're towards the head. So a cephalopod or cephalized, meaning you have a brain or a head. That makes sense. That's how you get a head if you're a worm. Sorry. So the parasitic flatworms are what are called flukes. That's a fun one. Fluke in a dolphin is like the tail, right? And then you're like, and then you think about, yeah, like a fluke is like, uh-oh, right? What the fluke are we talking about? Which fluke, right? So the trematodes and tapeworms, the cestodes, are the parasitic flatworms. Well-developed nerves and gastrovascular cavity are unnecessary, and they have the absence of cephalization, which in a way is beneficial to their survival. Not as complicated, right? Yeah. You've probably seen these in your dogs or cats. Ooh. What? No, that's good. So the flukes, their reproductive system is well developed, and they are usually hermaphroditic as well. You can imagine the flow chart or the table that would be in a test for this, right? Ooh. Maybe we'll make a flow map before the test. I didn't say that. So here is a nasty little fluke, blood fluke. It's kind of gross. This will really gross you out. It's a good thing we didn't bring in any of these. But right here, if you have a larva, and these are in a lot of African regions, not very many in the Americas, but, well, South America, sorry. The larva will actually penetrate the skin. And once in the skin, these will actually target the liver, okay? But they have to get into the bloodstream and flow through your bloodstream, and then they kind of house themselves in the filter of the body. But the adult worms live and copulate in blood vessels of the human gut. So the adults are going to lay their eggs, and all of their young are going to be, oh no, that's purging the system, isn't it? Okay. So the eggs are going to migrate into the digestive tract, and then will be passed on to the feces. So sometimes, you see this, right, in animals, you'll see worms hatching out of their feces. Now the ciliated larvae are going to hatch in water and enter a snail. That's the secondary host here, okay? And in the snail, the mother is going to have like a sporocyst that's enclosed by a developing daughter sporocyst, and the daughter is then going to grow into a larva, and then that larva can start this whole cycle again. It's kind of gross, isn't it? Yeah. Now these would not exist in a culture like us, right? We go to the bathroom in a bathroom, right? We don't mix nobody like goes and cleans their clothes in the bay and then goes to the bathroom in the bay and then, it gets their drinking water from the bay. We don't do that. Okay, but in some countries, that's the norm, right? The river's there's people upstream, there's people downstream, and they're sharing this wonderful water source. Right? And then there's our tapeworm friend, the 50s diet rave. Right? Yes. Did you guys quote that all yesterday now, the Dumb and Dumber line? I've got worms. Yeah. It's my favorite line in that movie. It cracks me up. So tapeworms have interior regions with modifications for attachment to the intestinal wall of the host. So we understand that tapeworms will latch onto our intestinal wall. When I say intestine, I mean that long structure that stretches from here to, let's say, the office, right? So that means that there could be several of these worms, about 1 meter long, living inside of me, if I had this. Yeah. And instead of you getting your food, they would be eating your food for you that you eat. You'd be slightly anemic because of it, but you'd be able to eat like a whole pizza and you wouldn't gain an ounce. You'd probably lose weight. Sounds like a great deal. And it was in the 50s, right? Women would take this pill. They would grow this tapeworm in their tummy. And then once they start feeling it move around in there, they'd be like, oh, it's time to kill that thing. Sometimes they would feel it in the colon. That's just gross, but it's reality. And then they would take another pill that would kill the worm, and then there's one exit of the body once you get that far down, right? And out would come a worm, a dead one. Yeah. I won't tell you how they get them out in other countries that don't have that medication. It's a different exit, we'll say. Do you guys want to know? They would sit on a bowl of warm milk, and that would be a food source, so the worm would crawl out. I'm not kidding. That's really how they, even today, that's how they get them out. So behind the head region, the scolex is a long series of proglottids, and they are found that contain a set of both male and female sex organs. So even grosser, within your stomach, there are these giant tapeworms that are procreating inside of your intestines. Ugh. What? No, you would know it. You would have, well, you might not. I mean, eventually you would know it, right? I mean, big old meter stick comes out of you. That's a different, right? What? What? I don't know. I have the same. I'm a human. I have these same images in my head. I got to take a moment to get over them. Just thinking about this worm inside of you, it would be gross, right? So, I will tell you, some areas of the world, this is like everyday normal life, right? Thank God we're not there. So there's the complicated life cycle that usually involves several hosts. So here's our friend, the tapeworm. So the primary host is, of course, the intestinal wall, us. We could be the host, okay? The host with the most food, if you were in America, right? But the primary host is going to ingest meat containing the bladder worms because that's where they will start, right here, okay? Now, we cook our meat completely. Yay. We don't get these in America, okay, usually. Now, animals, they eat raw meat, so this is pretty norm for animals. And in some countries, even firewood is pretty scarce. So do you think sometimes they're eating these in quasi-raw food or undercooked food? Yeah. Okay. So the bladder worm attaches to the human intestine. We talked about that, where it matures into a tapeworm. It's like the beginning of a tapeworm before it has all of these scales and these proglottids. Okay. Now, as the tapeworm grows, the proglottid matures and eventually will fill with eggs. Yum. Okay. Then the eggs leave the primary host in feces. So people go to the bathroom. So you have this host living in you. Okay. They're laying eggs inside of you. Your feces contains eggs. So this cycle will just continue unless you either change your not your diet, your hygiene, so to speak, right? Don't stand in your own feces or drink water that has feces in it. And that sounds silly to say, but again, in some countries, the water source is the bathroom. Okay? And so they may contain all of those eggs, and then if something eats them, of course, it's going to get into their intestinal tract. It's going to lay eggs in their intestinal tract, and it will be infused in their meat. So if you do eat the meat from one that has an egg in it, it will find your intestinal wall, and this whole thing will just start over again. Okay? Ew, right? Ew. That's not even that bad. I'll show you a worse one in a minute. So then there are rotifer friends. Now rotifers in themselves are generally harmless, generally, in themselves, I said. We'll talk more about that. But they're named for the crown of cilia known as the corona, and it resembles a rotating wheel. It almost looks like in the end it has this, it has all these whipped structures on the front that help propel it through the water. It's almost like having a rudder in front of the boat, or an impeller in front of the boat instead of in the back of the boat. But it serves as both an organ of locomotion and aids in the direction of food to mouth. So think of it as a giant jet that sucks everything in. And you guys remember looking at pond water, how you saw these things just taking off across the screen? You couldn't keep up with them in your field of view? Probably were a rotifer. They're extremely fast. There are approximately 2,000 known species. Mostly are freshwater, although some marine and terrestrial forms exist. So if rotifers aren't harmless, why do I say in themselves? They actually house other things on them, like bacteria, one of which is cholera. So now you get it, right? So these rotifers, because they have all these cracks, like we have armpits, they have like different cracks and regions of their bodies too, where they house bacteria. Because of that, if you drink water with that rotifer, you get the bacteria along with it, one of those being cholera. That's why they use the sari, right, to filter the water, because it gets the rotifer out. You get the rotifer out, you indirectly get the cholera out. So there's a rotifer, one type of the 2,000. So the mouth, it almost, you ever take a sheet and go like this? How it does a little wave? It's kind of like that. So the corona here, the mouth, is suck water and food in, and then it's a very simple animal after that. It does have a brain, it does have eye spots, so it can detect light, but then it has a simple stomach and gastrointestinal system. It's very simple. They do have what are called foot, although it's not for walking, and a toe. So this is a pseudopod in a way, not a true foot. Now, of course, we have mollusks. We understand mollusks. We're in Michigan. We're in freshwater environments. They have a three-part body plan. The visceral mass contains the internal organs. The mantle, it may secrete a shell and or contribute to the development of gills or lungs. And it has a foot. This muscle is adapted for locomotion, attachment, or to capture food. Kind of weird to think about a snail having a foot, but anybody seen snails, or not snails, but slugs? There's a difference. I know we don't think of it too much, but we have tiger slugs, a lot of them, the yellow ones in Michigan. The nervous system consists of several ganglia connected by nerve cords. The true colon is reduced and largely limited to the region around the heart. The heart pumps hemolymph through the vessels in the hemocole, or hemosole. So when I say lymph, that's basically like plasma tissue. So they don't have true blood vessels like we would think of them. Think of it as the lymph system that secretes hormones. It's not as large of a vessel. Now, if you've had anatomy, you understand lymph tissue and reticular tissue and things like that. But if not, we will get to that later. And then bivalves. We have these in Michigan, freshwater clams, mussels, and scallops. Scallops are good. They taste good. So the shell are of two hinged parts, hence the name bivalve. They're closed by powerful muscles. There's no head or radula, and there's little cephalization. So there's not like that head region. And if you think about a clam, you understand a bivalve. So the ciliated gills hang down within the mantle cavity on either side of the visceral mass, and the beating of cilia causes the water to enter the mantle cavity. So they actually, if we were to all go like this, and we were all lined up, could we pull water in? Yeah. So imagine millions of those now all doing this. So they are filter feeders. They capture tiny food particles suspended in the water. And so we think about zebra mussels. What did zebra mussels do to the Great Lakes? What did zebra mussels do to the Great Lakes? Don't tell me got the lions excited or hungry. No. Okay. Phones are ringing. I'll have to reload it. Hello. Yeah. Yeah, what's up? Google question. Can you say that again? Yep. 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 Oh yeah. Yep. That's in your edit function. So yeah, if you're in editing a form and you go to where it says send form. Yep. And you should have the ability. Hold on a second here. It's not going to be there. Where is that one at? Where are No, it's going to be in. Hold on here. Oh, there we go. Well, that's what you want. And oh, it's right on the main page. I'm looking for it in the tools. Jeez, good Lord. Yeah, only allow one response per. Just click that, and that way they'll only be able to do it once. Yeah, the only way you can limit the response per person is if you have a Google account. Yeah, but if they don't have one, they won't be able to fill it out. You know what I mean? Yeah, because otherwise they could just go to the URL again and again and again. Okay. All right. Yep. Bye. All right. See what you guys came up with. I know I left you there for a while. They invaded. They took over. Well, they did explode. You know, we had a lot of pollution in Michigan. We still do, but algal pollution, right? So they cleaned up the Great Lakes. Yes. Oh, and it sounds like a good thing until you realize that all of that phytoplankton and algae that they were eating was the food source for our food web, right? And that was like the kind of the basis of what feeds even our walleye and our salmon and all of our game fish and things like that. So if you take zebra mussels and you clean everything up, it sounds great because you're cleaning it up, but just remember that's food, right? That's okay. What? Yeah, I know. I don't worry about it. You know, it's just when we record, you guys know what's going on. You're the only audience, right? I don't care about anybody else. So, you know, the phone rings sometimes. All right, so in freshwater clams, yes, we do have clams in Michigan. The sexes are separate. The fertilization is internal. And the specialized larvae are released from the clam. I've never seen this done. I might actually have to look for it. I've never seen a clam have progeny, but they must, right? So, see if there's a YouTube video out there. Yes, clams having babies. Who sits there and waits? That's the question, right? Let the camera like. Yeah, you'd have to pay me a decent amount of money to sit there with a snorkel on and a camera and just sit there in front of a clam and wait for them to have children. It would be like days, I would imagine. Anyway, gastropods. These are the largest class of mollusks. They're slugs, snails, whelks, conchs, limpets, and nudibranchs. They have elongated, flattened feet, and most have a one-piece coiled shell. Well, I was talking about all of them, but yes, singularly, each one has a foot. Now, most have a one-piece coiled shell, well-developed head region, and the cerebral ganglion and eyes on the ends of tentacles. And so now we see the snail, right, that you've drawn ever since you were a little child in your head. What does a snail look like? Let's have some fun. What does a snail look like? Draw me a snail. Snail me. There's a snail joke there somewhere. You ever seen a snail that got hit by a hammer? Call it getting snailed. It's like nailed. No? Snail. Like a mollusk getting an A on a test. You snailed it. What else is there? There's another nail. A ballistic snail is a snail gun. Snail jokes aren't funny. No. Yeah. Ah, there's my tentacles with the sensors on the end. I like it. What else do you have? Snails are probably the one animal I can draw, you know. And it actually might look like what I'm trying to draw. So furthering along, looking at our cephalopods, these are squids and octopi. They have a head foot. Go through the process of unloading that filament with. The tentacles and arms are captured by prey and adhesion suckers or suckers. Secretions or suckers. The beak, yes, I said beak. It's really weird, right? I'm sure you guys are all familiar that octopi have beak, right? Like literally looks like a bird's beak. So the beak is used to tear prey apart. I mean, it literally looks like a bird's beak that would just tear apart food or flesh from the side of the road. And it's well-developed sense organs. Anybody seen a vampire squid? Those are cool. They are the only species in that genus, I believe.
Why do you like vampire squid so much?
Because it's like us. It's the only species in this genus.
Oh, it's like us? Why is it like us?
Oh, my Lord. All right. So these are just examples of gastropods and cephalopod diversity. But has anybody seen a nautilus? Those are kind of cool. They're extremely deep ocean dwellers. They live in way below the limbic zone. Okay, but they have these cool-looking tentacles. Who has seen? Gosh, I think Nautica uses it as their logo or whatever. Nautilus is another one. Do they have one of those on it? Yeah, same idea. Okay. And of course, we have our squid over here. And I think I mentioned that if you eat squid, you might be eating pig intestine because this hollow tube, this gastronomic tube, is what you're eating. You're basically eating the reproductive gut, all chopped up. But they do clean out pig intestine, and a huge amount of the squid out there isn't even squid anymore. That's gross. So the annelids in the phylum Annelida have segmented partitions, septa, and they divide the well-developed fluid-filled column, which acts as a hydrostatic skeleton. They have a specialized digestive tract. Did you feed it, or did you? Oh, it's still got to unload. Okay. They have a closed circulatory system, and they have a ventral solid nerve cord. Most are marine. The setae are these bristly structures that help in movement, very much like the cilia and the flagella. And here's a fun word. Oligochaetes have few setae, and polychaetes have many setae. It's right in their name, right? What? But the word poly helps. That helps a lot, right? I was always happy when it's now safe to remove it. Will you get a pencil or a pair of scissors and cut that? A pencil. Now we looked at some of these yesterday. Our earthworm friends. I don't know if we were friends to them yesterday, but they had the short end of that stick. The setae protrude in pairs directly from the surface of the body. They have specialized digestive systems. The food is drawn in the mouth by the action of a muscular pharynx, and you guys stabbed a pin through that and checked that out yesterday. The food is stored in a crop, very much like a gizzard. It actually feeds into a gizzard. And the digestion and absorption occur in a long internal intestine. Now, the only reason you didn't dissect the big part of that worm is because, sorry guys, I'm just loading the filament real quick, is because the rest of the worm is pretty much the same. It's just a long digestive tract. Basically, an earthworm is just like one long rectum in a way. Go ahead and try to print again with that, see if that'll work. Now the teflosol, increases the surface for absorption, and waste is eliminated through the anus. We know that as dirt, right? You guys want to grow worms in here? That's kind of fun. Make up for all the ones we killed. It's called vermiculture. We could have a worm farm. We could do it. I had one going for a while. We did do it in here a couple of years ago. You basically take one tote, poke a bunch of holes in the bottom of it, and put it on top of another tote with some rocks in the bottom of that one, and just spray it every now and then and feed it newspaper. They like bananas and coffee grounds too. What? They do. Yeah, they'll eat newspaper. So earthworms, but the ink's got to be terrible for them, you know. I think so. So the earthworm segmentation evidence is by the body rings. So we notice that as you go down the earthworm, you see these rings in it. The column is divided by septa, and the setae are arranged in pairs on segments. The ganglionic swellings and lateral nerves in each segment, and the nephridia falls within each segment. And then, of course, you all saw the branched blood vessels within each segment. So you probably noticed that there was a lot of vascularization within each different body ring. Oh, sorry. Okay. So they are hermaphroditic. You guys notice that they have sperm ducts and they have a clitellum. The two worms lie in parallel to each other, facing in opposite directions. When they do what? When they exchange sperm in the clitellal sac. Now they fuse the mid-body segment called the clitellum, and it secretes mucus protecting sperm from desiccation. So when they come together, they start to release what would be synonymous as semen in an animal. But this mucus prevents bacteria or anything from coming in contact with the sperm exchange, okay, so that the sperm can be passed from worm to worm, so to speak. There is no larval stage, so that means they basically are born as earthworms. We've all seen probably small worms, right? I actually want to go to a worm farm now and just see what happens. Yeah, that'd be a good field trip, wouldn't it? What? I can't remember. I'm going to have to look it up, to be honest with you. I think it's live birth directly from the clitellum, though. That's what I mean. I want to see it. I don't know. So you guys dissected a worm, so we aren't going to beat this to death, but we only worry about this top portion because the bottom portion is one long gastrointestinal tract that ends with an anus. And you guys probably noticed, what did you notice about the stuff, well, so to speak, or the digestive material as you went from the head, the mouth, to the anus? What did you guys notice? What happened to it? Tell me, describe it. You split like 3 worms longitudinally. What did you notice as you got to the anus of the worm, as far as the material? Thinking like some basic observations, right? You may or may not have noticed it. Okay, black poo, yucky, more okay. From beginning to end, what was the difference? It got darker and more liquidy near the end, so it was definitely being broken down, right? Okay. But basically, the worm was taking everything it wanted out of that material, the dirt it was eating, or the organic matter it was eating. It was making dirt. So it might float through and eat like decaying leaf particles, fungus, or mold, and then it would pass that through, and everything that's left over would be nutrient-rich soil. So there are other annelids. Most annelids are marine polychaetes, and setae are in bundles on parapodia. They have sex organs only during the breeding season. That's really weird, right? Leeches we're familiar with. Who's had a leech in this room? 2 of us. Okay. Now I feel weird. You guys never had a leech? Never like climbed? No? Okay. Leeches, gosh, my kids get leeches every summer. They're in lakes like all over the place. So if you swim in a lake, you're probably going to get a leech eventually. When did you get yours, Kevin? Okay. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's who they. How many? 7 or 8. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. If you get more than one, that's when you really start looking, making sure they're not down your shirt or something. So they're usually found in freshwater habitats. We got a lot in Michigan. A lot of times you find them under lily pads. Each body ring has several transverse grooves, and there's 2 additional suckers. They keep the blood flowing and prevent clotting by means of hirudin, which is basically an anticoagulant. Leeches are nasty little things. They're highly evolved, though. They can actually secrete a mucus, numb up the area, then basically latch into you with these teeth-like structures and hold on. You won't feel it because they gave you a local anesthetic. And then they release this venomous protein that keeps your blood from clotting. It's an anti-clotting factor. And so you'll just keep flowing. Yeah, it actually prevents scar tissue from forming because it causes blood to flow to that region. So a lot of surgeons will use this. Yeah, it says it's jamming, isn't it? Huh. I'll worry about that later. It's working right now. And so some hospitals, I don't know of any in Michigan, but some hospitals in a not so traditional method will actually use leeching, where they'll put leeches on a scar as it heals, like if they gave you stitches, and that would cause that area to draw blood to it without clotting, and it would keep the cells there healthier. Yeah, John Hopkins. Is there one in Michigan? Now I want to go see it being done, but leaching's been done for a long time. In medieval times, they thought leaching would actually remove toxins from your blood, so kings and nobility would actually pay to have leeches attached to them. Even barbers in Michigan, back in the day, a barber would keep a whole thing of leeches in the back room, and when you went in to get a shave or whatever, they would actually leech you if you paid them. Oh, U of M uses it. Okay. Kind of crazy, isn't it? Yeah, but keeping everything vascularized and not clotting and not killing and destroying cells is what it does. Now, obviously, you're feeding the leech, too, and you can't use all leeches because some carry diseases, but certain leeches you can use. And I can't remember the ones that, yeah, there are, and I think they're leaf leeches, the ones that they use. So there's one being used medically, okay? And so by keeping this area vascularized and not clotting and killing the tissue, it won't form scar tissue. Now that has an aesthetic appeal, but if you have like a damaged nerve area and things like that, it can prevent nerve damage sometimes. What if you woke up from a coma and they were like leeching you? That'd freak you right out. I think you guys have had enough for one day. Take a break. Okay?